I heard you go to the wood last night, for the owl woke us both with its cry. I left in the dark with stars in the sky, with only a fox in sight that crossed my path at the place it drops up where the common runs down to the copse. I'd tossed and turned but couldn't rest, for the moon was bright and round. I slipped out of the house, for I thought it best to leave without a sound. Our room was lit with a silvery glow, like a flurry of silent snow had entered the skylight in the night and covered our bed in a blanket of white. Your hair lay curled across your brow, like silver waves from a sailboat prow. I kissed your hand upon the pleat, and gently lifted off my sheet. I lifted the latch and down the stair, then quietly out to the cool night air. The rooftop slates were glinting grey, as though a sleeping salmon lay outstretched across the garden lawn, awaiting the tide to run and spawn. Through the village and over the hill, past fields where cows lay statue still, casting their horns across the grass, hardly stirring as I passed. In the half-light, nettles and thistles tickled the moonbeams with their bristles, and lining the banks and the outer hedges, along the ditches and under the edges, dandelions glowed like beads, as they caught the moonlight in their seeds. A rippling sea breeze made them shiver, blowing seeds off as they quivered up and away, lifting over the ground, settling on molehills and hummocks and mounds. Long before I entered the trees, the scent of bluebells sweetened the breeze. An owl whistled sharply somewhere inside as I reached the gate and swung it wide. The clicking of bats in a clearing above me gave way to silence, with only the sea soughing below as it rolled from the deep, beneath the cliffs where the sandpipers sleep. Nothing stirred in the hollow dark, and feeling my way with my hands on the bark of trunks that lined the shadowed way, I sensed them gently move and sway. Only the topmost leaves were whispering, yet sure 1,000 years must be listening. I found an armchair, made of the flutes of a buttressed beech with knuckled roots, and settled down to hear and see what sights and sounds might around me be. My eyes grew keen as a hawk on the moor, and the moments passed, the more I saw. I followed the moonbeams to where they played on spiders' webs and ferns in the shade. Then I tuned my ears fine as a deer's, and among the rustlings I could hear scratching and scurrying down by my boots, a long-tailed field mouse nibbling roots. And stilling my breathing to barely a murmur, I swam in my senses, seeking deeper and further. Shrews and voles came out of their holes, moths and maybugs fluttered and flew, and high in the wood near the boundary wall a badger tramped home to the tawny owl's call. Of all the birds, the wren was the one that raised the alarm when up came the sun. Her chattering cries woke a finch and a thrush, then a nuthatch and a blue-tit broke the hush. The rooks and the jackdaws above me cawed, a buzzard mewed and higher it soared. The topmost leaves were touched by the glow, then a fiery flood flowed over the brow, that lit a beach with its sails unfurled, then down to the hart's-tongue fern, still curled and closely bound in a spiral tight, awaiting the warmth of the morning light. There's a moment of magic at each day's beginning, as the golden light sends shadows thinning, when bluebell flowers in lilac seas lap in waves round the roots of the trees, and towering trunks stand dappled in shade like dancing giants caught as they wade through heaving swells of scented streams, lost in their lofty enchanted dreams. A drowsy bumblebee wakes up and lifts to drink from a dusty cup of nectared mead that a queen might sup, though never a purse or barter could buy the scent of a bluebell wood. From bell to bell, like a dervish priest, enwrapped in a dance, a musical feast of warblers and whitethroats, flycatchers and jays. He threads his bumbling, wobbling ways between the stalks and under the belfries. As flower to flower he passes and marries, receiving and giving his ringlets of gold, that round his bristly legs take hold of pollen grains from each and every bluebell lip that kissed his belly. There was nobody there other than me, to watch him alight on the bark of a tree, to preen his wings and rub his eye with dusted gloves, then onward fly. Nobody there saw the moon grow pale, low in the west, where clouds like sails billowed and swelled to fill the sky, stained with a pink and purple dye. One by one the songbirds stilled, till only a blackbird golden-billed sang out still, when all had flown, high on an elm that stood alone. The tree was bare from root to crown, no buds, no bark, no leafy gown. It stood out stark against the green that dressed all others to be seen, a hollowed bone that long since ceased to breathe the coolness from the east of wind at dawn that shivered through the copse on the hill on which it grew. Yet of all the fine trees in the wood, the elm was where the blackbird stood, and from its throat and needled tongue came warbling notes that wove and spun, a song it learned when it was young, that sang of how the elm one windy night had been dressed in a shift of shimmering light, from root to crown by the moon of May, while all about it in shadow lay. Its leaves cast dancing light on the ground, that rippled and swirled and round it wound, like shoaling fish in a silvered sea, caught in a current there under the tree. The rings of an elm are the leaves of a book that tell of dry summers and winters that shook, of salt-laden gales that stripped the crown and brought the weakened branches down, that sank into soil, returning to earth all that was borrowed since its birth. Nothing's forgotten if we care to remember, for songs like the blackbird's blow on the embers of memories past, of places we've known, of the people we've loved and the days that have flown. Truly in nature nothing dies, for the wild of the world is deeply wise. We see the jutting leafless towers standing brittle above the flowers as lingering ghosts whose shrivelled time has run its course and crossed the line. How little we know of the life below that enters the trunk where the sap used to flow. We do not hear the silent roar that rises from the forest floor, a myriad mycelium, blind and hungry, beneath the ground the forest fungi churning filament and fibre, pulping wood and bringing home bone and beak that months ago lay its wing down in the snow. Brown earth rises pink again in campions, pearly white among the ramsons, yellow in a poppy petal, green as gall within the nettle, a rainbow circle with never an end. For birth and death are but close friends. In truth they stand not poles apart, for where one ends the other starts. By the fireside where we rest sits the chair that I love best. Its back and arms are smooth and burnished. The seat is bare and left unfurnished, for a cushion, rug or throw would conceal what lies below, that swirls like storm clouds brewing rain, the forest's tale etched deep in grain. These moonlit nights of spring will pass, the surging sap give out at last. The owls will call me from my sleep less and less when the gutters weep, as autumn and winter buffet the house. Then I'll wrap in blankets and curl like a mouse in my chair by the hearth to gaze at the flames and dream of the treetops a-swaying again. For my fireside chair was once such a tree that fell in a storm and was fashioned for me, With my back in its arms in the flickering light, feet on the hearthstone, eyes closed tight, I'll soar like a kite above the whispering leaves, dipping and diving with the greatest of ease, as a blackbird could through a waking wood on a bright May morning as day is dawning, above a sweet-scented hue of pure lilac blue.